What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So on top of getting the latest 28 years later trailer yesterday, we got it yesterday midnight, actually the day before at midnight, which was fully released into yesterday. We then later on yesterday got this featurette video, previews the film Suffocating Intensity within 28 days later. So from what I saw briefly in this article, didn't read the whole thing. Obviously this image here should look very familiar if you have in fact seen the latest trailer. If you haven't, we did do a trailer review reaction on it yesterday, so make sure you go check out that video and drop a comment there and we'll take a look at it. But this new image here comes from it, and this image though, this scene is very quick. You could easily miss it in the trailer. They don't spend too much time here. It's one of those almost like a very quick flash of a scene, but it is in fact there. But I always do like when things like this come out, whether it's ahead of a movie release or after a movie's release, when we get to have a better understanding of the creator's mindset, the creator's direction, when they are filming specific scenes, specific takes on what they are intending for those scenes or what their thoughts are for the overall film. So in this featurette we have Danny Boyle and Alex Garland giving a just some quick thoughts in the video, which we're going to take a look at here in a moment. Very similar to what we do with trailer reviews. We'll go through the article details, then we're going to jump over and just watch the video, see what they have to say ahead of this release coming in just a little over 2 months, 2 months and roughly a couple days. So all right, so let's take a look and see what we got here. It doesn't feel like a sequel. It feels like an original movie. That's how director Danny Boyle describes 28 years later in a new featurette video released by Sony this afternoon, which would have been yesterday. The quote goes on to say, "When you're doing a movie, you're looking for those images that will terrify people. There's a versatile element to cinema where you have a responsibility to push the envelope as far as you can go. I want that sense of suffocating intensity." Boyle also notes in the featurette video. We have the release date, June 20th, 2025, which we all know. We all know this is a long-awaited sequel, but is also the beginning of a new trilogy. The second film still set for January 16th, and we know the film will be called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which we do see a bit of what I'm assuming is the Bone Temple, more so in this trailer, but we also did see a bit of it in the original trailer that was released. And then this is the synopsis. We're not going to read over this synopsis. We've read over this time and time again, especially on the trailer reviews and reactions. But I do like the fact that in his quote here, especially when you're dealing with horror films, pushing the intensity to terrify the audience as much as you possibly can. I mean, obviously there's going to be within bounds of certain restraints, I'm sure, with some creators wanting to keep their film probably within a certain rating in order to get the type of release that they want. Now, we have seen, though, other films be very successful that are unrated horror films. Terrifier 3 was one of those, but also Terrifier 3 didn't have the backing of a studio, nor does the franchise. The franchise, we know who owns that and what's been driving that franchise. I think had a large studio been involved in that release, which we do know, the studio did try to scoop up Terrifier 3, and Damien was like, no, I'm good, gonna continue on my own because I want to create the film I want to create. I think there would have been some guardrails put in, and I think much of Terrifier 3, some aspects of it would have been reined in to not be what they were. So I think that's where we kind of get something like this. But even with guardrails in place, someone like Danny Boyle is still looking to push those boundaries as far as he possibly can in order to give the fans a terrifying experience. And I'm glad that he's doing this also, because I didn't feel like the second film of the two original films we've received, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, I don't think 28 Weeks Later was that successful for me as a viewer. Just didn't really hit as much as the first film did. The first film by far is one of those that I think you could still easily go watch and still be to some degree terrified of what's taking place. The second film, not so much. Felt like it stepped too far away from what the original film was, whether that was filming style and just overall the aesthetic. Now, don't get me wrong, the beginning of 28 weeks later, I thought was very well done. I thought it was pretty messed up that the guy just literally abandoned his wife and kids and was just like, yep, sorry, can't save you, I'm heading to the boat, and then just, you know, rides off. I thought he could have made some level of an attempt, but also, I mean, the mother really stayed behind because she realized that her kids were there and she was trying to protect them, even though knowing what's about to happen. He still just jumps out the window and just starts taking off with no regard. Looks back, I think, 1 or 2 times, sees her screaming in the window, and then she's, you know, completely just engulfed by the rage virus victim. So anyways, so that's, I mean, the article is pretty short. So let's jump over into this featurette and see what these 2 individuals are going to be telling us about this film. That's, again, coming here in just a little over 2 months. Very excited to see this film. Very excited to see. I do hope we do get some bits, kind of callbacks to the original film. It would be nice to see that. So, all right, so let's pull this up and see what they're going to tell us.
In 28 years later, we tried imagining how a world would rebuild itself after an apocalypse.
Initial conversations were often about imagining what does 28 years later mean. If the infection is still on Britain, what does the infection look like?
Get back to the truth.
How does the rest of the world respond to that? Has the country been quarantined, essentially abandoned?
Holy Island, which is where our film begins, it's protected by a causeway that you can defend, but there's a lack of machinery, no electricity or fuel. Everything that surrounds our life now, suddenly it's useless. The mainland then becomes somewhere over there, which has both promise and threat.
When countries collapse for one reason or another, they're often abandoned. There's a ruthless, pragmatic, dog-eat-dog dimension to the way these things play out.
And the infected, these are extraordinary creatures.
They haven't died and come back to life. They're living people who've got sick and been infected with the rage virus. That dictates some stuff. They need to drink, they need to eat. If they've survived 28 years infected with this disease, what would they look like? Are they similar to anything in the animal kingdom? What would they be similar to?
When you're doing a movie, you're looking for those images that will terrify people. There's a visceral element to cinema where you have a responsibility to push the envelope as far as you can go.
Now, son, Spike, finish it!
I want that sense of suffocating intensity. It doesn't feel like a sequel, it feels like an original film.
It's interesting. He prefaces it again. We saw it in the article details where he feels like it's more of an original film. I'm hoping there is still some callbacks to the true 28 Days Later film. I mean, we know it's obviously happening in the same world, obviously, but as far as any specifically how things started or anything of that nature, I think it would be nice, you know, if there's just like these brief conversations amongst people in the community. That would be, again, just as a tie back. Now, I did notice a couple scenes that were in this little featurette that weren't in the trailers. One is specifically like the causeway that connects this island that they're all on to the mainland. We saw briefly when Danny mentions the causeway, how the water has come up and flood over it. Now, pretty much trapping you on that island, but also keeping you protected from anything coming across the causeway from the main island. They haven't shown that in the trailer, so I'm wondering if we're going to see something of that nature in the film, where, for example, you know, some of them are trying to get back to the island, and now they're being almost overrun by the infected. and this causeway is there, and they're starting to come down this causeway, or the causeway starts to flood over and the infected get into the water, just somehow for that to play into potentially now trapping them on the island, and now the infected are finding their way to get over to them, and of course not knowing how deep it is around that causeway, or the infected somehow figure out that, oh, even though it's covered in water, we know this is the path to go. We also saw very briefly this almost larger than life infected. We've seen, especially in the last trailer, there's 4 or 5 scenes that they really focused on for that particular infected individual, but we saw him here briefly again in the trailer, up close, but also in the distance. It's almost as if they're making this one out to be like the leader of the infected, and somehow I'm wondering if they will play into any aspect of, since it's been 28 years, if they've somehow evolved, to somehow communicate with each other, to somehow work together, things, something like that, rather than just running around, walking around, attacking anyone who might have survived. So I'm wondering if we might get some aspect of that evolution for these infected individuals. So anyways, that's going to do it for this horror news update for 28 years later, again coming out on June 20th, 2025, and then the second film January 16th, 2026. And then once we know more about the third film, we'll make sure to bring that to you. Otherwise, drop a comment in the comment section, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about what Danny and Alex had to say about their thoughts leading into this film. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.